Hello, 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 and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. We are at episode number 78, and today is a little bit different, starting this way. Yesterday was my birthday, and I wanted to do something kind of exciting, so I've put together a 5-day challenge, and today's episode is sharing all about that with you, and I hope that you will join me. It's all about when you find yourself going around in circles, stuck in a logjam, and I've called the challenge the Loggerheads to Lover Hearts 5-day challenge. So I'm going to tell you all about what that means in today's episode. And by the way, you can find the notes at www.beabrillianthuman.com/78. Hit it, Kim.
Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast. You're in the right place if you're a growth-seeking being who acknowledges the challenges and delights of your humanity on the path to an ever more conscious life. If you want to feel inspired to love and accept yourself, to feel free to be and express you in all your brilliance, if you want to truly value yourself and others and feel energized and alive both at home and in the world, then sit back and take a breath as you explore and grow the brilliance of your beautiful human self with your host, the father of non-personal awareness and creator of the MPA process, Joel Young.
So today, I'm very excited because I am beginning the Loggerheads to Lover Hearts 5-day challenge. It's really, the intention here is to help you if there's a particular situation in a relationship where you're at loggerheads. It'll help you shift that and move you from that stuckness to movement. So today I thought I'd talk about loggerheads, being at loggerheads and you know what that looks like and what that might be. So if you think about relationships in general, and just to be really clear, this isn't just about your sort of intimate or partner or spouse relationships. This can happen in all sorts of relationships where you kind of get just stuck on usually a topic. Now the topic might be symptomatic, but we'll start with the topic, and it can go into that space where you kind of almost get to the point where it just wears you down, and you might have tried to approach it from different angles, but maybe it flares up. Maybe you even become afraid to talk about it, but it becomes like this wedge between you, or it just sort of hangs in the air, and you can get to this place where you sort of have this uncomfortable and not compromise, but really in a sense you're compromising yourself, you're compromising the relationship. And there's a lot of pain. And when I was looking at doing this, and I did a bit of sort of asking around people what their experience of this was, I realized, well, how common it is, but also how much pain and suffering it causes in people's relationships. One of the things that can happen is you end up having the same fight over and over again, or even it can come to the point where in that topic you just zone out and kind of ignore it. But again, underneath the surface, it's like there's this sort of clawing away at your soul. And if it gets to the point where, you know, every time it comes up, then there's a big row or a flare up, you can end up sort of feeling guilty. You might really look at yourself and go, I don't like my behavior in this situation, but I can't seem to get through to them or to move beyond this. So it can be incredibly painful. So I thought I'd talk a bit about, I think in the stuff I've put out, one of the things that I get the impression is people, although I've put it in there, tend to hear that when you hear the word relationship and these kind of things, then often you think it's about, if you've got a partner. And someone said to me, I haven't got a partner right now, so I can't join. And I said, well, it can be in different situations. So for example, it can be with a parent, with a child, with a friend, with a sibling, with a colleague, or even with yourself. So there's so many different types of relationship where we can get that sense of going around in circles, stuck, that immovable place. And things don't move on. In fact, do they not only move on, they can sort of stagnate, especially if we do come back to sort of the the sort of intimate relationships, it can just really drive a wedge between in the intimacy. I mean, the sex can go away. You become roommates rather than husband and wife or lovers or whatever that is. It just sucks away at your energy and your life, and even in the end, it can suck away at your own self-esteem. So I thought I'd give some examples of what being at loggerheads might look like in those different situations. So let's start with parents, right? So you might be at loggerheads with a parent or both parents, but so let's pick one. So maybe, for example, your parents disapprove of your current partner. That's a situation where you go to seek approval, they won't give it. You go to seek approval, you try to explain, they won't give it. And again, it means that you feel like you can't be who you are with your parents. And you might try talking to them, but again, it feels like a stuck point. It's like you can't move beyond it. So that's one situation I thought of. Or maybe they disapprove of your lifestyle choices. So maybe you decided to go vegan, and you go around to your parents' house, and your dad rolls his eyes, and you say, "Oh, I can't have the roast this weekend, or that sauce has got milk in it, or whatever." And he just rolls his eyes or makes some comments about how unnatural that is, and there's that sense of disapproval. And again, it often has that quality of either you'll end up in a massive fight and you storm out because they won't accept that, or they won't even agree with you. Maybe you need them to agree with you, and that puts you in the place of stuckness around it. Or then you feel like less like going and seeing your parents who you love. So again, it creates a lot of pain, but it's that sense of going around in circles. You can't even address it. Or again, you go to the point where you just don't talk about it, but inside, there's that frustration. I mean, one of the things when I spoke to people about what their experience was the sense of such frustration around the situation, and ultimately a sense of powerlessness. And a lot of that kind of attacking or flare up, or even the disconnection, comes from that sense of powerless. What can I do about this? You feel like there's just nothing you can do, or you've tried really hard. So it's hugely painful. So that's parents, some ideas. Of course, there's loads of different ways, and I'm really open. If you've got ideas or ways that you experience being stuck, do put it in the comments. Okay, how about if it's with a child? Again, maybe you're the parent. Maybe you disapprove of them, especially if they're like a teenager or something, and maybe they decided to smoke marijuana, and you feel it's the wrong choices for them, or whatever. Or maybe they've gone vegan and you don't like it. So again, it comes into this war. And again, in these loggerhead situations, often both people feel like they're right and have a right to their opinion and all that kind of thing. But in the end, and part of what we're going to be doing on this 5-day challenge is to help you to come into a space of empowerment in relation to it, and navigate you through to a place where you can shift it from that going around in circles to sort of opening the circle, so that there can become movement in some way, shape, or form. And hopefully within the process of that, you can get clear on what that looks like in order to take these stuck cogs into the machine moving again in some way that is healthy and doesn't compromise you. Also with kids, I spoke to someone who described a situation with a very young kid, a toddler. I think it's a toddler, and again, who tends to lash out. And obviously, as a parent, she wants to advance him in his behaviour, and also feels disrespected. But it ends up in a big flare up. She ends up shouting, and it all goes pear-shaped. But it happens again and again and again. So it may be with young kids that you end up with this sort of power struggle, or this fight that goes on. Okay, how about friends? Being at loggerheads with friends. So again, there's loads of situations that might put you at odds with a friend. It could be like a best friend, but there's this thing. Maybe it's an historic, let's get the English right, maybe there was some kind of behavior that happened in the past, either from you or from them. Maybe it was a trust issue or a sense of betrayal, or whatever the circumstances are. That the fact is that since then, much as you love them as your friend, there's this thing that is just in the energy between you, and so from that, again, maybe every time it comes up, it gets ugly, or again, more likely that there's a level of disconnection happening in a relationship that you value very dearly, and you can recognize that perhaps even by this invitation to look at, if you're at loggerheads with someone, and realize that it's, you deserve to feel better in that relationship. The relationship deserves to have movement on it, and there is a way that you can do that. So if you come and join the challenge, the link's in the description there, then certainly that's something that you can do. Where else? So siblings. Well, sibling rivalry. I mean, it's rife, isn't it, really? So one example might be maybe your parents have died and there's a will situation. I've heard this on many occasions, and there's disagreements around how to deal with things in those kind of situations. And again, it's already painful enough, but you find, again, you're at loggerheads. Things won't move. Things can't be moved forward because there's this just difference of opinion, and the loggerhead is sort of just bringing everything down. Or maybe it's one of those things where you feel like, the classic thing is she always judged me, or felt better, she was better than me. Whatever it is, and part of the process in the challenge is helping you to identify specifically what it is that's going on so that you can move it. But again, it puts that edge on the relationship. It puts that strain. And even though you can kind of be polite and nice to each other, in the end, and this is part of, that's why I say lover hearts, which I'll talk about in more detail, but basically is your heart feels the pain because it knows its natural state is love, and love doesn't mean that you make shitty behavior okay. I'm really clear on that, but it does mean that you can give yourself the means to create some movement where there's stuckness, because there's one thing that our soul kind of abhors is stagnation and stuckness. So that's part of it. What else we got? Colleagues. So maybe it's a colleague that sort of undermines you, and you end up fighting over small things, what you're going to do at work, what the plan is. Again, that tug of war, push-pull syndrome is indicative that you're at loggerheads in some way. You both are having very different opinions and not budging. And again, it may be, and it may be in the situation at work, especially when you've got to work with them. There's sort of short of moving jobs, and that may be the solution. You'll find out what that is. But fundamentally, it's that's a big part of your life where you're in a situation where there's discomfort in a relational situation. So again, come along, join the challenge, and consider the ease and peace you can get when you get some resolution within yourself that will give you the means to move things on in some form. And then, of course, let's talk about spouses, husbands, lovers. I mean, again, this is the area probably why most people are seeing it in terms of an intimate relationship, and especially if it's a long-term relationship, and things can just get shoved under the carpet. But every time you do that, and there's a situation that you feel unable to talk about, or every time you do, there's defensiveness and flare-ups. This is what slowly drives a wedge between you. And again, your lover, your partner, your spouse, your husband, your wife, whatever that is such a foundation of your life. There's so much there. So did I write anything down? I did about this. So maybe it's he won't take the bins out. I mean, that's probably a symptomatic thing, but still, it can become this big issue that sort of drives that wedge. Or maybe they won't put down their phone. That's a good one. Again, sometimes when we take a look, because one of the things about this challenge is I want to make it sort of something really simple, but sometimes those little surface things are the threads that can unravel much deeper things that are going on in a relationship. And ultimately, if you can free that, there can be a cascade effect where such more delight can come because you've broken the You've burst the bubble of this loggerheads thing that can just spread throughout the whole relationship. Another thing it might be, well, there might be trust issues that have gone on, or it might be that another area where I see this is where there's plans to be made. So conversations around, do we have kids? Conversations around, do we move house? Conversations around even where do we go on holiday? Or getting married. So these are areas where if one partner has a desire, another one is stonewalling, you can get into this loggerhead situation. It doesn't do you any favors. It doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve the relationship. So again, I encourage you to check out the challenge, sign up, and give yourself the resources and the inner space so you can again go from the stuckness to the movement. And the last one that I include in the list of where you can be at loggerheads is with yourself. Now, honestly, it will be probably more straightforward for you on the challenge if you do an external relationship, but I'm certainly open to an internal lockdown that happens. And a classic one for that is the should I stay or should I go? That can be in a job, that can be in a relationship. There's different areas where that can come up. But again, you've got the two parts of you fighting. And you end up doing nothing. You're kind of internally paralyzed, which causes a great deal of suffering. It's like your mind and your heart classically would be just having very different opinions, and ultimately it's about in your wholeness you can't find a resolution. And there may be things to look at there, but certainly again it's that paralysis, that stuckness, that sense of reduced intimacy. Because if you're stuck within yourself, then you're reducing intimacy with yourself. You're not listening to yourself. You're not acknowledging yourself. You're not loving yourself. And again, so all of these things are different ways that you can be at loggerheads. So I hope that helps you understand that. And whatever you choose to do, I think it's a great inquiry to have, is where you're in these log jams. Again, one of the things I say about this challenge is it's sort of free yourself from a frustrating relationship logjam in just 5 days. And that's what it's like, a logjam. It's like it's just backed up. Your heart's full of logs and can't flow. And the sense of relief and ease just to get, even if it's just a trickle going that can become a tsunami, is a beautiful, beautiful gift to yourself. So in the challenge, the purpose of the challenge is to help you work with a specific situation in a specific relationship and go from that holding pattern to break the cycle and land in a moving direction that feels right and true for you. And part of that is activating your lover heart. So the hashtag that I use is loggerheads to lover heart. So I thought I'd explain the lover hearts bit. And basically the principle is if you've got a log jam, because you've been in that push-pull battle and you're getting nowhere fast with somebody, then you're blocking up your heart's true nature, which is to flow. And the nature of its flow is love. So your heart wants to love. It's what it does naturally. It's what it wants to do. And often that sense of when you really want something with all your being, and you've got your foot on the brake, that creates all the pressure, the paralysis, and those cogs just get jammed up. I think one of the things I want to talk about is when we talk about the heart's nature is to love, sometimes there can be a perception around that goes into that kind of fluffy, everything's fine, I love everything, and it makes everything okay. And the truth is that that isn't necessarily what your heart's longing to love looks like. And a big part of what you'll be discovering on the challenge is what that movement looks like. So, for example, sometimes in a relationship, there are situations where there may be all of that wonderful romantic love, but there are things that aren't serving you. So sometimes letting the heart activate its loving nature is more self-directed, which can mean, especially if there's an abusive situation or those kind of things, that you get out of the holding pattern of staying and you move into moving on. Or it may be that there's just been a holding pattern of not talking, and talking is the thing. But a big thing that I want to say is that the days are designed, or the process is designed to help you find that one shift that will help you go from stuckness to flow, but will meet you in all of the details of your specific situation. Because obviously all of you that are on the challenge are going to be in very different situations, working with different types of relationships at various different stages. But it will be that shift from stuckness to movement, and then really getting clear on what that movement looks like. So the thing I'm guessing is what your heart is calling to you is, with all that disempowerment, frustration, then obviously there's a longing to feel empowered. And that's the big essence, is step into a sense of your own inner innate power to go from stuckness to flow. And that might look a lot of different ways. When you activate your lover heart, it may be that what it wants is to find a sense of clarity. Maybe it's a sense of peace or connection, or maybe it's a sense of, sometimes it's like coming out of alert status. If you've been in loggerheads for a long time, then you can have your body in alert status. It's like constant anxiety. It's horrendous. Maybe it's inner alignment. I think that's probably one of the things that whichever way it goes, whatever that resolution, whatever that sense of movement looks like, it does come from a place of getting into alignment with yourself. And from alignment with yourself and that clarity and that peace, then the movement can be kind to you. And that's the other thing, that sometimes we call it a compromise. And there are times where compromises aren't really compromises. They're actually full-on agreements in both people that may not be what they originally had in mind, but suit both of them. I wouldn't call that a compromise. I'd call that an empowered choice of both parties, which serves the relationship. But more often than not, it's a compromise. And a compromise is something which ultimately compromises yourself. So again, I would say that activating your heart's true nature, your lover heart, is not going to be something that compromises you. And it's not going to be something that's going to be unkind to you. That's not the true nature of the heart. It'll guide you into a place where whatever conversation you have, whatever action you take, will be, to begin with, honoring you. And then through that, you'll be honoring the other person, whoever that is in the relationship. So I hope that explains the sort of idea of the lover heart. So I wanted to talk about, it's that we're all equal when we come to our edge. And one of the things in the challenge is to understand that we all need support. We all need support sometimes. And it doesn't really matter whether you've done like years and years of working on yourself, or whether you've like newly awakened or just beginning the journey of self-investigation, probably because of some crisis or situation in your life. It doesn't really matter, because at our edge, we're all blind, we're all newborn, we're all in new territory, and those are the times when it's time to get support. In the case of the challenge, you'll have the support from me, the support of the process that we go through together. So I do love that we are all equal in this space, and that it doesn't matter. And I'm going to give you an example of me and my situation. So I've done knocking 30 years of personal growth, self-development. I've been teaching in the field for 25 years. So it's not like I'm an uninvestigated or unself-investigated man. But nevertheless, I think anyone who is a growth-seeking being, anyone who is committed to the path of self-inquiry, growth, always is going to find places where we discover deeper blindnesses. And in my situation, I'm freshly out of a situation of going round in circles. And in that, there's been deep uncoverings of the way that I had perpetuated going round in circles, the way I had participated in my own self-denial in a way. So for me, this is quite a raw process of really understanding how we can keep ourselves in sometimes very difficult situations. And again, just to be clear, it's not like these situations mean that they can do, but they don't take over everything. But there can be some things in some relationships where you deny it because it's other things that are can be so wonderful. And I'm not saying that the result of you doing this challenge means you might end up leaving a relationship or any such thing like that. But I will say that often when something like this happens in any relationship where you hit a logjam, you hit an edge, there's normally a lot more under the surface than we realize. And one of the things I'll be asking you in the challenge is to pick something specific, which we'll get to then. Don't worry about it now. Don't think, what do I do? We'll get to that. Because sometimes you can pull at the thread and you find there are very deep things. So for me, I realized that there was very, very deep patterns born out of some some pretty grim childhood experiences, not with my parents, just because they might watch. but it put me in a position where I'd attracted and said yes to behaviours that were just not okay. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I've got from it is to really trust my instincts and really honour and value myself. And it's not like I didn't know that. It's not like I haven't progressed over the years to deeper levels of that. But sometimes in life, we get to go deeper. And the point of me telling you this story is, again, just to really tell you that even though I'll be leading and guiding the journey, even though I have lots of experience, at that stark edge, I was blind until I could see. And so that sense of equality in all of us at our edge is deeply important to me and absolutely fundamental to this challenge. Okay, the other point I wanted to make was that, again, sometimes people who have done a lot of work might look at these things and go, well, it looks like it's something I've done before. And that may be so. In a sense, what I'm offering, I can see that parts of it I recognise from other things, but there is my unique spin on it. It does bring in the non-personal perspective. And even if you come in and recognise things, I would invite you just to look at, is your heart calling that there is a place where you're going around in circles, where there is a logjam and you are suffering, and somehow this has come into your sphere, and could be a way that it's just the right time, the right place, and never mind the mechanics of the process. So there we go. So I do hope that this has inspired you to take a look at, firstly, acknowledging the pain that comes from these situations, and also opens the possibility of shifting it so you can get movement and relief, because you do deserve better. You do deserve to feel better. And whatever that relationship is, even if it's with the boss, or the relationship deserves better. So do come join me again. Click the link in the description. It's www.npa4me/challenge will also get you there. Or you can go to my website, joelyoungmpa.com. Scroll down a bit, there's a big picture you can click, and that will get you there too, if that's easier. And I very much look forward to seeing you in the challenge and sharing this journey of all of us together in our equality, at our edge, supporting each other to make that one powerful shift that will take you from the frustration, pain, suffering, and disempowerment to a state of movement, openness, and clarity within yourself. Just come join me. I'd love to connect with you, and thanks so much for listening. Last thing is, if this touched you, if this moved you, please do share it on your page, on your Facebook, wherever that is. And otherwise, I'll send you big hugs, lots of love, and hope to see you in the Loggerheads to Lover Hearts 5-day challenge. So all that remains is to cue the moo.